Lots going on in VR this week. First up, let's talk about the Quest 3. Now, Meta has been laying off tons of people, trying to make their workforce more efficient, as they've said, but they are confirming that they still plan to launch the Quest 3 this year. They recently confirmed the Quest 3 is going to have color AR pass-through. They've confirmed before that it's going to be somewhere around $300 to $500, but something that Boz had alluded to before that seems to be even more confirmed now is that it will not likely have any sort of emotional input. He said with all of the cameras and extra cost it takes to accomplish face tracking, it was not something that would probably be seen in consumer VR for years still. Through leaks that we've seen, it does look like we are getting the pancake lenses. It looks like it's still gonna have a similar head strap to the Quest 2. These are all things we've been talking about, but at least they're still on track to get it out this year. I'm hoping for more information on this in the spring when they usually have one of their events, but we may have to wait all the way till fall when they actually go to launch this, especially as now there's been some news that they think they found out who at Meta was leaking information to news outlets about the headsets, and that person's gone. So we'll talk about that all in a whole nother video though. Hogwarts Legacy recently came out, PS5, PC, other platforms, and regardless of how you feel about the franchise's creator, a lot of people were really excited to see a next-gen game all taking you through the Hogwarts school, and now they're talking about a VR mod already when the game has barely come out. VR modding community Flat2VR dropped a nearly 10-minute video. We'll have some on the screen here, but there will be a link in the description if you want to check out the whole thing of their mod they are working on. Now this mod, of course, would not allow motion controls. They're not adding that in yet, but this would be able to let you see through VR perspective the school first person as you walk around, take part in classes, and from the video it looks really promising. I also feel confident that they can pull this off because it's not as hard to bring a game to VR if you're not trying to add motion controls. You would still be using a normal gamepad or a mouse and keyboard, and really you would just be seeing it through virtual reality. Might not be the most effective way to play the game, but it would be a good way to just go in, look at some of the beautiful locations and some of the great scenery. Let me know what you think in the comments about this, because I know that a lot of people say they would love to see all their favorite games at least brought into VR where they could at least use their headset and see, even if they use regular controls. But other people say if it doesn't have the motion controls, maybe it doesn't really matter to have it in VR. They would just rather play it flat like they would normally play it. What do you think? VR Chat and Rec Room are some of the most popular VR social apps out there. A big part of that is because young audiences really like those apps. Horizon Worlds, Meta's own version of that, has been trying hard for a while to grow without allowing kids in. Well, according to a Wall Street Journal memo that was leaked, Meta has figured out that is the recipe for success, and they're not only going to be allowing teenagers in, but they're even going to be targeting and trying to get them in to up their retention. After they had hoped to have 500,000 users in Horizon Worlds by the end of last year, and they only hit about 200,000, they're saying retention is their top goal this year, and the way they're going to do it is through the young people. Now, if you've been in Horizon Worlds, you know there's already some kids that have infiltrated it.
Cat fist bump your face.
I don't know what that is.
Ow! You better shut up. Yeah, you see that? You see that?
And yeah, that really changes the social app when it goes from mostly an adult audience to adding in the squealers. So I don't know. What do you think? Have you been in Horizon Worlds? I already wasn't spending much time in it. Now with this news, I definitely will steer clear of it. You know, there's tons of teenagers and even young people that are really cool to play VR in. But the problem is those people pretty quickly in these kind of apps find their crew, their clan, and hang out with them mostly. And the ones that are left in the public lobbies just hang out there are the ones nobody really wants to spend time playing with. This worries me that Horizon Worlds, being known already for it having a mostly adult audience that really enjoys it, this will squeeze them out and turn this into another social app that people say just has too many kids to be enjoyed. Local multiplayer games are becoming easier to develop now on the Meta Quest 2. Thanks to a new API, aka Application Programming Interface, developers can now develop directly using the spatial anchors in a play space for people to play together. Now, this is not something totally new to the Quest 2. Actually, back at the Oculus Connect 5 in 2018, there was a really cool demonstration of Dead and Buried where they had a big arena made. A bunch of people had Quest 1s on, and they were all running around in the same play space, seeing the same virtual world, seeing each other. Not only that, but they had iPads as virtual cameras where people could see and spectate looking through a window into this virtual world that they were playing in. More recently, we've seen attempts like Space Pirate Arena. You can set up multiple people playing multiplayer, but it's very tricky if you're in the same space because you have to set up the play space exactly from the same middle point and hope that the Quest 2 really keeps that point in place, because if the play space moves even a few feet or turns at all, you might see another character and you might run around and shoot them, and you could run straight into them if their actual physical body isn't matched up with their avatar in the game. More recently, we've seen Resolution Games drop a game in beta called Spatial Ops, where now using the augmented reality side, especially with the Quest Pro, you can still see the real world through your headset, but you're seeing these obstacles, these guns, these grenades all being thrown and used inside of this AR space together. But now what's going to happen, instead of each headset having to be centered from the same spot and looking for the same anchor points, these anchor points could actually be shared between the headsets. So in an ideal world, one headset would set up their Guardian play space exactly to the specs of the room, and it would share that with the other headsets, and you wouldn't have to try to map and hope that it kept the same points and didn't mess up on you. This is a lot more for developers, but it's really exciting to me to see the potential, because the biggest thing that I've had a hard time with the Quest 2 is it just never felt like a good local fun family experience. Where with like the PSVR, there were some games where you put on a headset and be playing something, but other people be playing on controllers on the TV with you. The Quest 2 has always felt a little more isolating and harder to cast. So now with the Quest 2 or even the Quest 3 coming being a lower price, this excites me in the fact that maybe we can get multiple people together with headsets and still have that family experience, but everyone's in the game together. What do you think? Demeo is a game I've really enjoyed and talked about a lot. It's a virtual board game where you and up to 3 other of your friends are all playing together over this virtual board game, going through dungeons, exploring, and trying to kill the bosses and find your way out. I've always thought that it's been really interesting the way you hold your controller, you have cards in one hand, you can take your card and play with your action card, you grab your board game piece and you move them. I've always thought hand tracking seemed like it'd be a really good fit, as your hands stay in front of you for this. It's mostly deliberate, slow motions you're doing, it's not fast movement. And now it looks like it's actually in development. They tweeted out a video showing the use of actual hand tracking in the game. I think this is really exciting, especially as you have friends over to play Demeo. This could be a really good experience if you have multiple people putting their headsets on and they can just use their real hands. You don't have to introduce them to the controller and the controls. And especially as more and more of the headsets are looking like we're going to have AR full color pass through with the Quest Pro, the Quest 3 coming, could be a really awesome experience to be playing Demeo together, be able to actually see each other in the real room with that virtual board on the table in front of you. I do have some concerns because Demeo, sometimes you go to move your character, and if you don't move them exactly where you intended and you let go and then you drop that piece, you've now wasted one of your actions, which are very valuable. You need those to get through the levels. And so if hand tracking were to glitch, you were to grab your piece and try to move it and it only moved it part way, it didn't do the attack you meant to, it could really break the game. So I'm hoping they'll take the time to develop this and make this really good. I'm really excited at this potential. After a lot of uncertainty, it looks like Meta might finally be able to buy Within, the studio that makes Supernatural VR, popular VR fitness app. Initially, back in 2021, they announced they were going to do an acquisition of Within, but the FTC stepped in. They said that this was trying to create a monopoly in the VR space. Originally fitness, there was even some talk that they had said because they own Beat Saber and Beat Saber was fitness, they were not allowed to buy both of these. In more recent news, and according to Bloomberg, which we know they've been a little less than reliable lately, a federal court in San Jose, California has now denied the FTC's request for that preliminary injunction. This doesn't mean that the deal is done, but this does put Meta much closer to being able to do this, as this was a big part of what was blocking them. We've seen Meta buy a lot of studios in VR, and then the common gripe has been they've bought these studios and then more games haven't necessarily come out after buying them. So what do you think about this? Do you think that they're still pushing too hard to own too much of the VR space? Do you think that other competitors coming in like Pico, maybe launching in the US, will make a difference, or PSVR 2? There's been so much going on with PSVR 2 coming up and launching very soon that we'll be doing its own video talking about all the PSVR 2 updates, so watch out for that. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on what's going on in the news this weekend, anything that we didn't talk about that you would have liked to talk about. Thank you for coming out, and I will see you in another reality.